My name is Tommy Palm. I'm from Sweden. I'm a CEO and a co-founder of a studio called the Resolution Games, who is focusing a lot on what we call visual computing, so VR and AR. And I'm going to talk primarily about AR, but I'll also touch a little bit on VR. So I'm an engineer from being. I've always been very interested in human evolution and progress. And if you look at some very, very important milestone in the history of our species, it basically starts with information technology around somewhere 100,000, 50,000 years ago when we started using language to communicate with one another. It was a huge upside we had on the Neanderthals, and that we could speak and convey a complicated chain of thoughts to each other. We don't have much evidence on exactly when this happened, because text wasn't invented until some 5,000 years ago. And I read very fondly that the first evidence of text we have is some scribble from an accountant, and his name is saved in history, which I think is very funny. Then, some 500 years ago, Gutenberg invented the printing press here in the West. And that was important because it started making books much more readily available to more people. And then internet, some 50 years ago, came along and made information much more accessible. Today, I bet all of you here have smartphones that you use to instantly look up something you don't think is factual or you're curious about. And very soon, we'll have VR and AR that will help us find information very quickly. So this comes in parallel with revolution in AI and voice recognition as well. And one really cool thing is how much quicker these milestones happen, because this information is spread quicker to a lot of people. And I think that this is going to happen faster and faster going forward. So if this is such a major breakthrough in humanity, why are we talking about games? Well, when it comes to VR and AR, it's fundamentally game technology used to create experiences. You need to build virtual worlds, virtual objects, animation, voice acting, things like this. Something that game companies typically is very good at and have in their core. So from my point of view, I think it's I started with games because I loved playing games, and then eventually I found out that I really enjoyed making them. And now we're at a point of history and time when making games is actually incredibly important, and you can get a really an exciting position in our society by being able to create this type of interactive software. But in my brief talk today, I'll talk a little bit about game as a business, just to set the stage. I've started 5 game companies. Resolution Games is my 5th startup. Talk a little bit about the AR potential and compare AR and VR a little bit, and look at 2 of the AR games that we've been working with internally. So first, just my view of what AR is, so we'll have a common language. I think about RoboCop, looking forward, having a helmet on that helps you instantly calculate things, being connected to a computer through a camera feed. And I think that's actually one of the biggest components that you don't think about. I think that's one of the biggest changes that's going to happen in our society soon. We're all accustomed to carry around our smartphone, but it's a very big step to have a camera that's always on with you. And that camera doesn't necessarily need to for you to save the video file all the time, but have it connected to a processor who can help you instantly find out what it is that you're trying to do, and be contextually aware of your surroundings. And today we have obviously head-mounted AR such as Magic Leap, which haven't really come yet, and then we have mobile AR that is already available but hasn't really taken off either. So it's fairly new. So first of all, I just wanted to say something about making games as a business. It's incredibly difficult. That's one thing I've learned about working professionally with games for the past 20 years. You need to make a lot of games in order to make sure that one of them is very successful eventually. And I have found out that it's from my point of view, it's a little bit like art. Game needs to be about something new. They need to have a new component. It's very difficult to copy-paste what somebody else have done and be successful with that. You need to change at least something and bring something new into the mix in order for people to be truly excited about what it is that you do. And that's often these new buzzwords. You know, in the 90s, it used to be multimedia, and there's a lot of blockchain talk and things like this now. But we're talking about AR and specifically. When you talk about marketing and things like that, there is this blue ocean, red ocean scenario where mobile games is typically a red ocean scenario with a lot of sharks in the water. The competition is very fierce. When it comes to VR and AR, it's more of a blue ocean scenario. There's plenty of, it's a new space. There's plenty of food for everybody. It's very helpful when you start a business to be here, according to my experience. So what does VR and AR have in common? At Resolution Games, we released 5 VR titles so far, and we've learned a lot for working with that for 4 years. Especially there's a lot in the production cycle itself that is very similar. So the production pipeline, the skill set that you need to create experiences. I heard that Unity is used for 70% of all apps in the VR space. And that's something that I absolutely believe. Both Unreal and Unity is extremely powerful tools when creating this type of content. Also, this brings us a new ability. The controllers themselves, all of a sudden you have an ability to actually work in the 3D space, which is something that's very exciting. And probably eventually will also come to 2D screens and PC. I'm sure that there will be a really interesting, you can model things, for instance, or play games that were made for VR with a PC if somebody brings those controllers over. And what is different? Well, most things actually. If you look at especially the use cases on how you play games, AR games can be a much more social experience with the people in the same room who are not on the same device as you are, for instance. So it is hard. Some games can work to bring across, and I'll talk about one of the games that we work with for that. One of the things that I was very interested in seeing this year in the keynote of Oculus was that for the first time Oculus was speaking about AR and saying that there is a lot of similarities between them, and eventually they think that these two technologies will merge somehow. The perfect AR glasses will also have the ability to play VR games. If you look what, I think that AR primarily will be used for is things that help you access data faster. Virtual assistants, for instance, is a use case that we're starting to see more and more. Getting suggestions on what you want to type and things like this. And having a camera and a microphone that is constantly following your situation will help you faster find what you're looking for, which is very, very important in our lives. So less clicking and less breaking a conversation because you want to show a certain video and you end up looking for it for a really long time. So the first kind of case study I wanted to go through is something we call Bait Under the Surface. And we released a fishing game back in 2016 for VR called Bait. And it's been very successful on VR headsets. We have more than 2.5 million downloads of that game, primarily for mobile VR. So it felt like a natural place for us to start. We already had a lot of assets and gameplay that worked really well. So we started creating a mobile version, a mobile AR version of this game that we called Bait Under the Surface. We had already also developed a multiplayer game for Facebook Spaces where you could play ice fishing with your friends. And we saw that was very fun to have this type of social activity with this. I did a lot of interviews with journalists fishing and talking about the game at the same time. It was really fun thing. But we started with this project back in the summer of 2017. And we had a very small team originally, being very agile. We didn't know exactly what would work, but we wanted to try and find some really nice aspect of this that would work, because, as I said, they are very different platforms. We tried with making a fish tank where you could fish different type of fishes and then collect them in a tank and decorate your tank. We didn't feel that worked really well, so we dropped that track. Instead, developed a lot of different environments where we had more than 70 different fish species that you can find, some of them rare, etc. We managed to make a lot of 3D assets specifically for this game, and a lot of it is also potentially could be used for the VR game as well, as we built these 3D environments. This is from a bait shop that's available in the VR game that we have updated the graphics so you can walk around in the space and interact with objects there. One thing that works really well in VR and also in AR is characters. So we spend a lot of time at focusing on making interesting characters, non-playable characters that you can meet in game that you want to help out by solving missions and things for them. These are just some examples of different characters that we added. This is one of the core scientists that helps you, give you mission, etc. And you help her on this island to find fish species and get them to her. We worked a lot with different user interface. This is something that is fairly, there is not a lot of standards around AR user interface, similar as with VR. There will eventually be standards, but right now there's a lot of time you can spend on trying to optimize so it's easy to use. We also spent a lot of time on visual effects. So you'll try to merge the real world with the virtual objects as much as possible. Here's a list of different things that we did, like cracking up the surface so that, looking down, adding depth to things that typically works really well as an optical illusion for AR. This is an example of what it looks like. So you crack a hole in your in a surface. You need to scan for a flat surface first, and then it opens up a fishing hole, and then there is a bunch of interactive objects, and you can fish there. We even made a multiplayer version of this, so you could fish with friends. And one of the things that we discovered is that these tools are still rather crude from a game developer's point of view. It's very easy from a designer to say that you want to have, like, somebody is fishing and then your friend can join you at the same fishing hole. That's what we would like. But in reality, you have to do a dance to sync your phone so it knows it's seeing exactly the same thing. So it turned into a very complex user activity to get to this very casual thing that fishing is. And we came to the conclusion eventually that it actually isn't a good match with fishing and mobile AR. So we've recently decided to actually put this project on hold for now, even though, you know, from my point of view, it looks fantastic, and I would love to play it, but it just doesn't really work. And a lot of it is the fact that it requires much more of the users to scan these surfaces. So if you think about typically places where you play your mobile phone, your favorite mobile phone games, it's in a very casual environment. You take it up when you're on a tube, you play it in the bathroom, etc. And a lot of these places don't have good surface area to play. So typically a desk or a big floor is good places to fish or to open a hole in. And even if you talk about the floor, then you end up being very, very far from the virtual objects that you want to interact with. Any questions? I would love to answer. It's such a small group. We can be fairly interactive. I don't have a ton of time. So the second game, yes, a question?
I would like to know how you see moving forward this year for AR games. What do you see as the opportunities for mobile AR?
Yeah, I'll get there in my kind of conclusion slide there. Other example that we worked on is AR game for Magic Leap together with Rovio. So we made an Angry Birds game. See if this video gives you a good example of what it looks like. You recognize the familiar gameplay from the 2D game, except this is in real 3D, so you can go in and come very close to the characters. And it works really great. Obviously, the Magic Leap platform is still very, very small and has a small number of players. But from a developer point of view, this was very interesting. And I definitely think that there's a lot of people that tested the game loves it and think that it's very intuitive and true to the original. One of the things that worked really well in this project is the characters. There's a lot of humor, and you can come very close to them. So a little bit to conclude and come back of what is things that you really can do today. I think one of the things that I really love that's magical about AR is creating portals and be able to go into, see windows into these virtual environments and navigate around in the 3D world. Characters work exceptionally well. It's, as you probably know, if you're a game developer, it's very hard to do credible characters. It takes a lot of effort, but it pays out if you make something that is believable. And as I said, 3D navigation is one of the really big things. Certainly, all of a sudden you have a very logical way of moving the camera around in this 3D space. But as I said, scanning for surfaces still requires a lot about the user. So I don't think casual games is very good in this space right now. You need to do something that people are willing to engage to a lot more. So multiplayer experience is probably better of that reason, that you're doing it together with your friends, or it becomes a bigger, more interesting topic for somebody to do. And if you think about a lot of where mobile games are downloaded, it's that is a big challenge for AR games, because if you're on the tube and you download it, you can't play it instantly. So Currently, there is hundreds of millions of devices that is AR capable with ARCore and ARKit. I'm sure that we'll see some hit AR games in the market. They're being pushed from Google and Apple quite heavily. I would be not so surprised if they contain virtual pets, for instance. That is something that works really well because of what I've talked about. And I'm sure long-term AR will be super interesting, and then this is an opportunity to get people more familiar with technology, and as a developer to learn what you can do. So I would advise anyone to give it a try.
Thank you, Tommy. That was a superb expose, beautiful case study, and it's lovely to see all that artwork as well in the process coming through to your ideas, and it was a very open, honest conclusion you gave there. But I think also that's a really nice way to show that AR is very exciting. It's pioneer stuff still, but thank you so much, Tommy. Very much.